Hey guys, Transit Biker here. So I had a quick thought that I want to record a video of my COVID experience. I had COVID very early on, in late 2019, early 2020. I have to be quiet because people are sleeping. It's late at night, and I'm going to be sleeping in a little bit as well. But before while these memories are fresh in my mind, I was scrolling through photo album and whatnot. I just wanted to touch on a few things, and I wanted other people, COVID survivors, to share their stories, and any long haul folks. I'm especially interested in hearing about your experience and what you're going through, and a little bit of solidarity and recognition that or it's not done for people who have survived, and that we've also, another topic entirely, but we've also lost a lot of people to COVID, both directly and indirectly. Um, so yeah, I'll get started. So it all started with me, I think, in November of 2019. For a couple of days, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days, I literally just I could not get, like, I was just sleepy, tired all the time for, I don't know, a good week and a half. But for especially about 4 or 5 days in a row, I have pictures that document this on December 1st and 5th. And later on Christmas Eve of all days, I think it was actually the morning, like it was December 24th, um, I went into hospital, and I have a screenshot of me in the hospital, or I have a picture of myself at the hospital. I don't know why I took the picture there, but yeah. Um, but in late November, early December, I had that really severe fatigue thing going on. I didn't know what was going on. That was really the only symptom I had. Pardon me, tired. And later in the month, I had a fever and a sore throat. And I went to the hospital, and I took a picture. But after I took the picture, um, I normally, when I'm in a hospital, I wear a mask just to be safe, cautious, kind, thoughtful, whatever. I don't want to bring anything in, and I don't want to take anything home. Uh, but I had a mask on. I would have been wearing a mask, and I was not, so I must have taken it off just to take the picture or something. I'm not really sure. Um, and this was December 24th of 2019. I came in because I had a fever and a sore throat, and they gave me a strep test, or they swabbed the back of your throat. Yeah, that was great. And then they gave me a flu test where they put the swab all the way up your nose into your brain almost. Now, for people who've had a COVID test with the big long swab, that's basically what they do. It's basically the same mechanism of testing. They put a big, huge, like 10-inch long swab up your nasal cavity to the back of it. Negative on flu, negative on strep. And basically the whole time I was definitely wearing a mask because I remember having to take it off for them to do the swabs. And I remember back in April of 2020, after clearly we're in the middle of a pandemic, lots of people were getting sick, etc. I felt like, whoa. I went to the hospital and blah 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 blah, and I wanted to track people down. Like, hey, I could have been infected. You should get antibodies, but um, at the time, I was just not in a good mental place. Obviously, a lot of people weren't, but I was didn't want to call the hospital at that point because I realized as much as I cared about possibly exposing those people early on, they were in the middle of doing their own thing. They were up to their hips in COVID patients at that point. So I didn't want to add to that ridiculousness. I still do want to figure out what the precise timeline of all that was, and if I did infect anyone, because I would feel terrible about that, and I just would like to know, just for my own peace of mind, one way or the other. Um, but for the record, I've been wearing those yellow and blue masks that they have at like the hospital entrance. I've been wearing those for years in the hospital, in waiting rooms, at the car dealer when they're servicing the car, or at the bike shop if I'm waiting for service. If it's cold and flu season, I'll be wearing one of those. Since I met my girlfriend, it's basically during cold and flu season, I will be wearing one of those inside, and I wear them year round on the train, on the bus, whatever, public transportation, if I'm out and about, year round. And if I'm inside somewhere during cold and flu season, well, I have a flu shot, but I also make sure that I hang around and make sure there's no one like coughing, whatever. I try to be aware of the airspace and stuff. So mask wearing is really, really important. And I also wanted to mention the fact that, there were a lot of healthcare providers early on that got sick because we didn't know what we were dealing with at first. I mean, the general public. Some people probably did know, regardless of political stuff and the Trump administration's, response and all that. Early on, there were some people that knew what was going on and they, took precautions. But this was in 2019 that this happened. So this was very early on. And then, and also to put a little bit more background, I used to spend a lot of time pre-pandemic, in cafes, uh, Whole Foods, and train stations, doing train pictures around people waiting for the train, and Starbucks and Target, etc. If some of the Targets have like a cafe area, I'm a huge cafe and diner person, so yeah, so that's what I used to do a lot, and I think that me doing that may have led to me getting that initial illness back in November, early December, and I now thinking about it as I'm talking about it, I think that may have been a separate illness from my COVID experience overall, but it doesn't minimize the fact that it could have been COVID, and B, it was probably the sickest I've been. It was like 3 or 4 months where I was just totally not, just falling down over myself, just really ill. And it wasn't a cold. It was so much worse than that. Um, I've never been that sick in my life, and I hope never to be again. It was really bad. So then, fast forward a couple of weeks, and I stopped in, I think my family did a Christmas gathering, but we did not do, I don't remember exactly what was happening, but I remember not doing Christmas stuff on Christmas. We delayed it by a few days. I think it was like 3 or 4 days because I wasn't feeling well. And that was everyone's consensus that we just wait a few days. If I'm not feeling well, we're just gonna all wait and just all do our Christmas thing together with my mom, which is our tradition. Um, and a few days after we had our Christmas thing, my sister-in-law got sick. She had pneumonia. She had all of the classic, now that we know, classic COVID symptoms. She lost her sense of smell. She had pneumonia. She had very, very poor oxygen levels, and she was pregnant with my nephew at the time. So, yeah, it was pretty scary. And she was in the hospital probably about 4 or 5 days. Not a short amount. It wasn't just like a visit thing. She was there for multiple overnights. And yeah, her oxygen levels got kind of scary, and her inflammation stuff, like chemicals, were like all over the place, and they were not the correct numbers for someone who was pregnant. And so, yeah, I almost lost my nephew to COVID, and my sister-in-law, which would have been horrible. And my brother and his mother-in-law, my sister-in-law's mother, um, they were saying, he was actually saying that they actually had something that was uh, really unusual, kind of cold-like illness around that time, but it didn't seem like a cold to them, look in retrospect. Um, Lots of coughing and chest irritation and stuff. And that was right between Christmas and New Year. And then I went to um, another hospital later on, um, in January, to visit her. She was having, um, I think, like a prenatal like visit type of thing. I think she was having contractions like way too early, and we thought that my nephew was going to be born. And so we went to the hospital and we all visited her, and so see how she was and spend time with her and stuff. And because she was all alone, and my brother had to work and stuff, so we just went and saw her and all just kind of hung out with her for a little bit. And about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, that was the middle of January. So approximately 2 weeks later, keep in mind this was in a hospital, January, southeastern Pennsylvania, kind of ground zero for the outbreak here in Pennsylvania. Um, I had shortness of breath. I could not catch my breath for about 10 days. Might have been longer. At one point, I was sitting in this chair that I'm sitting in now, and I was panting. I could not catch my breath, and I had very full chest feeling. And I had that kind of feeling a few years back, 2014, 2013, something like that. I don't remember what year it was. I felt like this weird full chest thing. Turns out that I had a little bit of a chest cold, but I was very dehydrated. So all the mucus that was forming was like hardening in my lungs, which was, yeah, lovely stuff. So in January, I think I sent a message to my girlfriend. She let me hang out with her kids for the day, which was really cool. But partway through the day, they started less cool, fun hangout day with me, and more pestering each other and so on and so forth. You guys know how it is. And I that's when I really noticed that I could not catch my breath, and I started feeling. I mean, I can just it freaks me out just thinking about it now. I can remember my lips were tingling. I literally was like not getting enough oxygen, like clearly. And yeah, I texted my girlfriend. I was like, I can't really deal with this right now. And she was at work. And we were planning board games and a couple of movies and all that kind of stuff. I could not keep up with them. Normally, I have the most energy out of everyone. I always have the most energy. I couldn't catch my breath, and I felt short of breath, I guess, at that point. And then later on, I had a hard time feeling like like I wanted to yawn all the time. I was just panting constantly. This was in the middle of the night. It was either the 23rd or the 20th. It might have been the night between the 23rd and the 4th. I don't know. Not sure. But I do know that is the most scared I have ever been. I could not breathe. I did not know what the hell was going on. Now, here's another little piece of a puzzle that I didn't realize until a little bit later, months later, is that keep in mind the kids were still in school. This is just January of 2020 at this point. Okay, so kids were still in school. Her son, my girlfriend's son, came. My girlfriend's son was homesick for about 3 or 4 days in early mid-January. Same time frame as the hospital visit where I visited, not me going to the hospital to visit because of a medical issue, but I visited someone at the hospital and came back and he had quote unquote bronchitis. Now, what are the chances that within a 3 week span, a whole bunch of people I know suddenly have bronchitis? And then I have shortness of breath. I know that there was another coronavirus circulating at this time. I know that there was something going on in Europe. And I think that first coronavirus was me being tired and all that. But yeah, so later, I kind of put the two and two together. Like I was exposed to whatever he had, and I was potentially exposed in the hospital. Because keep in mind, this is January. People don't quite know exactly. I was in the maternity ward because she was having early contractions and stuff. They did not let people without flu shot into the maternity ward. You have to wait outside in the little visitor area, like the general visitor area for the hospital. And it makes me really wonder if COVID was circulating in that hospital at that time and we just didn't know it, or if it wasn't as infectious then. I don't know. But it hit a whole bunch of people that I knew all right around like late December into late January. And this is on top of all the other crap that was circulating at the time through people in school and people who have students and work public facing jobs and stuff. They were all sick in November and October, and it wasn't the flu. And then later on, they were sick again, like a second time in January, February, or even late December to mid-February. So by mid-February, I was better. I did not have the chest tightness. Now, in between those two that time frame in between the 23rd when I sent the message to my girlfriend. I still have it on there on the Messenger app. I'm too tired to deal with this or whatever. I don't remember the precise words, but I coughed up legitimately almost, I know this is going to sound really disgusting, but almost maybe a pound of the stickiest, most disgusting yellow, almost orange mucus that I've never experienced that before. And now that I'm thinking about it, orange mucus should have set off alarm bells, but it was so gross and so overwhelming and disgusting. I didn't even really think about it at the time. But that orange mucus means that my lungs were damaged. I didn't go to the doctor at the time because I was getting better, quote unquote, and this mucus that I was coughing up, sometimes it was so sticky that sometimes when I breathed in the cough, it would like congeal even more and bring up even more. It was just so bad, so bad. And then there was also little chunks of green mucus, and I've been told that that is actually lung tissue in there. When it's like dark green, that's actually lung tissue in there, like dead lung cells. So yeah, I mean, I had mild. I couldn't really exert myself probably for about 3 to 4 months after that. It was probably May before I could exert myself properly again, like running down the way to, I don't know. Like I mean, keep in mind this was like stay-at-home order time, so we weren't really out. But I took my bike out a couple of times right around the neighborhood, wore my N95 mask, walked around the neighborhood. I had to stop doing that because people had the same idea as me. So this disgusting, gross, mostly yellow, some orange mucus that came out. It was, those kids these days, they make that slime stuff. It was like sticky and stringy, and never experienced that in my life. Now, fast forward I don't know, this was like maybe in April or May. I don't think it was as late as June, but it was either April, May, or June of 2020. This part of my chest right here, I had residual issues, pain, congestion, all on my left side. Even now, if I take a full breath, there's still something going on there that's not quite right. My ability to hold my breath is definitely reduced also still. And about maybe June, I started feeling better again, and the pain on this side of my lungs and the chest here it was definitely like under my ribs. I have a history of nerve pain in my ribs from a crash I had many years ago on my bike. I think it's called like loose rib syndrome or something like that. I don't remember, but it was caused by a bike crash, and I just remember always just this weird painful sensation in this area here all the way up to here. And about, I want to say early June, I felt this weird thing in my chest, like my chest. It looks weird on the camera because it's moving to the right for me, but it just felt like everything just went like that. And I think I may have had possibly a partial lung collapse in the upper part here. And I felt for, I don't know, maybe about 3 weeks, a little bit short of breath. And I couldn't take a full breath, and it felt very strange. And starting in mid to late June, I started getting low body temperature, like 96, 97 degrees on a regular basis. Really, really, that's Fahrenheit. Really unusual for me. Typically, my body temperature runs a little bit on the hot side, and I have a fairly high metabolism, even though I need to like lose weight and stuff, obviously, you know. I have a fairly high metabolism, and so you can imagine how much I have to overeat to gain weight, or just lack of activity. But yeah, so I started getting low body temperatures to the point where I would be shivering and my nose would feel cold, painfully cold, and my ears would be painfully cold. My fingers would often be really, really cold. Sometimes the joints, these areas in between the joints on these fingers here would be painfully cold. I would go to like hold my girlfriend's hand. She'd be like, "Oh my God, you're freezing." I'm like, "Yeah, it's freakish." And this happened off and on. That happened until I got the first vaccine shot. And this happened probably at least once a week from June till I got my first vaccine shot in April of 2021. Pardon me, sorry, got a crack medic there, comfort. And then also, it happened once between the two vaccine shots, and it has not really happened since the second shot. That's really interesting to me. I'd like to know what that's all about. I have a thing where if when I eat, my body warms up. It's been like that since I was a kid. But since I had COVID, that didn't happen. And ever since I got the second vaccine shot, it's back to how that used to be. And then, so I don't really have the low temperature as much anymore. The random fatigue, that was really affecting me last summer of 2020, summer into autumn. That started to let up. I would like to say as soon as I got my first vaccine shot, maybe about a week or so later. I do still get random fatigue, but it's now much more rare. I used to have random fatigue that would happen to me maybe about, say there's 7 days. It would happen to me 3 or 4 out of 7 days. Now it maybe happens 1 out of 7 days, if that. It might happen like maybe 2 or 3 times a month. So I still do have random severe fatigue, lack of energy, unable to get out of bed, so on and so forth. It's definitely more than it used to be before I was sick. But the vaccines, for some reason, made those particular effects go away, as far as I can tell. Then one of the other things that really caught my attention post-vaccination is my sense of smell that was affected on and off due to sinus issues and allergy issues. 2021 pollen season. 2020 was definitely affected me. But I was inside. We were locked down here for most of that time. I only went out maybe twice a day or maybe 2 days a week for groceries, and that was it. And I'd be wearing a mask the entire time in the car and everything because I don't want to have to take it off, take it on, all that stuff. I just want to have it on and not have to touch it, take it off after I leave the store, put on a fresh one. But one thing that the definitely this year above all others is that suddenly I'm very allergic to pollen, like horrendously, ferociously allergic to pollen. Never been before. Last spring, um, I definitely had some pollen run-ins, incidents when I was going for a walk, blah, blah, blah. So the sensitivity was definitely there, but I wasn't exposed to it as much. This spring, I was going outside a lot, in the yard and walking around and going to visit. I went to visit my mom in June, May. I think it was either May. I think it was May. Pollen season here is about 3 to 4 months long, depending on the weather. Starts in February, ground starts warming up, February, March, and then kind of smooths out around mid-June or so, right around now, this time of year, actually. Um, this pollen profile last spring was probably a little bit later also. But this particular spring, I literally could not go outside without just like my sinuses just, oh, I can't deal with pollen anymore. Can't deal with smoke, can't deal with pollen. I have massive, massive, massive sensitivity now. And it's really weird. It's almost like more than an allergy. It's almost like my body is just absolutely in revolt against these little particles. Unfortunately, the vaccine had no effect on that at all. Didn't make it worse, didn't make it better. And so, yeah, at this point, where my girlfriend had severe fatigue for about a day, and uh, and she had a slight fever in March, probably the week after kind of Pennsylvania closed all its schools. And that was pretty scary. So I'm pretty sure we've all been exposed to it at least once. She's a librarian, so it's a public-facing job. So I think we've all been exposed to it at least once. The kids probably at school. The kids have had little fevers here and there throughout, um, since the schools closed, and they were not in school. They didn't interact with anyone outside of their immediate family, and that was all with masks and distance and stuff. But yeah, it's so I think we've all been exposed, and it's really interesting to me because I'm not sure if it was 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2018 with that real bad flu season. Really bad flu season. They all got the flu. I did not. At least I wasn't symptomatic. They all got the flu, and I was basically taking care of everyone. Her daughter got very sick from the flu. Her son got, he was laid out pretty good, but her daughter got extremely sick from the flu. Now looking back, I think she did not get as affected by stuff as I might be afraid of. Because if she had COVID, um, I think what it did is it affected her eyes, like the mucous membranes around her eyes, and it affected her sense of smell. She could not smell anything for a good 3 weeks. Like, I mean, anything. So it could be that we were already all exposed, and we were just lucky enough to get one of those early variants, maybe that wasn't as severe, or I don't know. I really don't know. But I guess I'm gonna top out my sort of COVID survivor story um, with the fact that her son is getting the vaccine tomorrow, and he's gonna chill out over kind of away from from her daughter for a couple of days, just to make sure there's no, because he's actually going into a doctor's office. Um, and I have in the next couple of days I have to go to the dentist, get my this guy right here uh, incisor on the top on my right, get that guy worked on, and based on the stats with the Delta variant, um, I do have two other. I do have two other teeth that need attention with cavities. But I think what's going to happen is, due to the Delta variant coming into play now in a much more meaningful way, um, and her daughter is still too young to get vaccinated, unfortunately. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait maybe 3 weeks to get the other two fillings done, um, both for monetary. I mean, I can't really afford it. Um, and also, I want to make sure that when I do go, her son's been fully vaccinated, and it'll be several days before the kids are back here again. That way, if I did get exposed, there's no way that I would kind of know. But anytime I'm around them at night, if I'm in their room, if I'm hanging out with them in their room, I have a mask on. I always do that during cold and flu season anyway. It generally works. It works okay. And I just bought her daughter and her son a couple of cloth masks that are much better than the ones they had before. And yeah, so that's where I am now, and I'm still wiping down groceries. We're still quarantining everything for 72 hours, and because of this Delta variant, we went right from relaxation and cases going down to we're gonna have to just keep at it, keep wearing the N95s, keep wearing double mask with the N95, and if I have to go in somewhere, I'm gonna be wearing goggles. And yeah, it's really unfortunate that this pandemic has been left to just sort of rot in certain places, and the vaccines are all very uneven. There are millions of people in this country that think the vaccine is some sort of hoax or something. And there are billions of people around the planet, multiple billions of people that desperately want the vaccine. And I think it's just horrible that there's such an imbalance and such a dichotomy. It's really a massive tragedy. So I just want to say, anyone watching this video, um, please share your COVID survivor story, and please get vaccinated. Vaccinate your kids as soon as you can. If they're not quite old enough, talk to your doctor. See if they're willing to do that. I think this Delta variant is pretty dangerous, and it seems like younger people are starting to get very extremely sick from this, especially people under 30 for some reason. Not sure. In any case, guys, as I always say, love yourself, love everyone around you, kindness first and always. And please, guys, get that vaccine, okay? Please share your stories with me, right? Peace.